Hey, what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the first part of my large unhaul. So this unhaul is going to be split into two parts because I have a lot of books that I've decided I'm going to no longer have on my shelves. Many of them are actually from one particular author or two, and the rest are books that I either am not interested in anymore or are basically books I just read and did not really enjoy. So let's see what we got. So this video in particular is going to be dedicated, as you can tell by the title, for my Stephen King and James Patterson books because I have a large collection of both authors. Many of you know that I was for a long time doing my Stephen King reading series on my channel dedicated to reading books by Stephen King in chronological order from publication. So after, though, having read a duology, The Talisman and The Black House, I had ultimately decided to stop with this and ultimately unhaul all of my Stephen King books because of the fact I no longer was really comfortable reading his books, as many of his books in the earlier portions of his career were incredibly damaging, while some of his newer books have ultimately changed in terms of his writing and how he's written certain kinds of characters. I no longer also had any massive interest in continuing. I just felt like I didn't necessarily waste my time with doing this series, but I just no longer felt as drawn to reading his books, and I do not believe I will ever continue, so why even have any of his books on my shelves? Same thing kind of goes for James Patterson. James Patterson was an author where at a time in my life I was enamored with his books. I was a huge fan of the Maximum Ride series of his when I was a teenager, but I no longer really feel the call to continue, for instance, the Alex Cross series that I had started a long time ago, and I haven't really even had any draw to picking it up at all since I read the last book I had read in that series, so I don't really see myself continuing with any more of his works, and I just don't honestly feel like I want to support either of these authors anymore, because mostly there are way better authors out there that I could be spending my time on, and these two are not it. Let's go ahead and get started with going through all of these books in no particular order. I may even jump from author to author at this point between the two of them, but we're just gonna go through all the books I can find that I decided to unhaul, and quite honestly, it's a lot. So, First to Die by James Patterson, The House Next Door by James Patterson, The Dark Tower comic book, The Gunslinger Reborn by Stephen King. I don't even know what exactly this is involved in The Dark Tower. It was a gift from my husband, and I don't really want it anymore. The Running Man, Salem's Lot, and Pet Sematary, all by Stephen King. Cell by Stephen King. The Shining and Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. Different Seasons by Stephen King. The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. The Talisman and the Black House by Stephen King and Peter Straub. Roadwork by Stephen King. Revival by Stephen King. On Writing and the Mist by Stephen King. Misery by Stephen King. And now we're resorting to have to find my other bags of things because the ones I had immediately around me, there's no more, so I have to go find my other bags and other stacks. The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. Carrie by Stephen King. It by Stephen King. Elevation by Stephen King. Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. The Bazaar of Bad Dreams by Stephen King. Thinner by Stephen King. The Fire by James Patterson and Jill Dembowski. The 13-Minute Murder by James Patterson. Books from the Alex Cross series by James Patterson, including Along Came a Spider, Kiss the Girls, Jack and Jill, Cat and Mouse, Pop Goes the Weasel, Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue, London Bridges, and finally, Mary Mary. Two books from the Confessions of a Murder Suspect series by James Patterson and Maxine Petro, including The Private School Murders and The Murder of an Angel. Gerald's Game by Stephen King. Everything's Eventual, The Long Walk, and The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. The Dark Tower Treachery graphic novel by Stephen King, Robin Firth, Peter David, Jay Lee, and Richard Isanove. And End of Watch by Stephen King. The Green Mile by Stephen King, and Firestarter by Stephen King. Entire Dark Tower series, including The Gunslinger, The Drawing of the Three, The Wastelands, Wizard in Glass, The Wind Through the Keyhole, Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and The Dark Tower. all by Stephen King. The Dark Half by Stephen King. Rose Matter and Christine by Stephen King. Cradle and All by James Patterson. Woman of God by James Patterson and Maxine Petro. James Patterson and Andrew Holmes's Revenge. Books in the Maximum Ride series by James Patterson, including The Angel Experiment, School's Out Forever, Saving the World and Other Extreme Sports, The Final Warning, Max, Fang, Angel, and Nevermore. Finally, the last 3 books out of all of these are The First Lady by James Patterson and Brendan Dubois, Home Sweet Murder by James Patterson, and The President is Missing by James Patterson and Bill Clinton. I can no longer sit in my original spot because it is covered with books. This is still only part 1 of the books I decided to unhaul. So, these are all the ones that, though, are by Stephen King and James Patterson. The next part is going to include all of my classics and other books that don't necessarily have a particular genre. They just all kind of culminated. This is basically, I would say, about a full half of the books that I've unhauled, and the rest of the books are various things like classics, like I said, manga, and other things that I collected along the ways that might have been accidental duplicates or other things that I'm just no longer interested in. So stay tuned for that if you would like to see the other part of this unhaul. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining me in this video. My shelves honestly feel a lot lighter now that I have completed this unhaul, and I will be going through each month now from here on out to unhaul my books. I will be listing the majority of these on Pango Books if you would be interested in that. So if you would like to buy any of these off of me, please feel free to do so. The link will be in the description for you guys, and also the second part of this as well. So thank you all so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.